What's up, traders? Welcome back to another backtesting session. If you're not familiar with backtesting, it's basically trading your strategies on historical data with theoretical trades to see how you would have done. It's a great way to practice, if you will, your trading before you put your hard-earned money on the line. I'm going to be tracking my results here on this sheet. I'm testing GBP, JPY on the daily chart, risking 1% per trade, and I'm trailing stops to break even at 1R. And I'm going to be using structure, as I usually do, to try and lock in profits on a trade if it runs in my favor and stop out if it does not. So without further ado, let's jump into this before we get too far. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing down below for free trading content. I share all of my journey here on YouTube, my wins, my losses, my failures, my successes, for you guys to hopefully get some sort of benefit from and maybe make one less mistake than I did in my own personal trading journey. So let's get into it. GBP, JPY. I'm going to just go ahead and start marking this up and see if we can find any trade setups here. I actually like this setup by itself here already. Getting long here on a pullback. Again, I'm going to be risking theoretically 1% per trade. And generally, if you're not familiar with how I trade, I'm a trend trader. So I'm generally looking to go with the momentum of a market rather than try and fight which direction it wants to go and just try and ride as much as I can here. We are actually in the year 2013. I scrolled back and just chose a random time on the chart. And we're going to be testing my strategy or my concepts to see how they would have performed. So yeah, let's do it. So I'm going to actually say that I'm going to risk sort of a small amount here if we get filled. We'll see if it actually gets filled. But I'm going to be, instead of, if you're familiar with how I trade, I don't actually use a target. In fact, let me see. I'm going to show you guys how I usually use fibs, and we'll go from there. So I actually use fibs. I'm going to pause the video and we'll come back here once I've set up my levels. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. I like to use the Fibonacci tool. You can see if you want to copy my levels, you can do here. This is how I use it for tracking my risk to reward. People ask this question all the time, and this is basically what I do is I just set all these levels here. 0 being my entry, right? This is my stop, and these are my take profit levels, I guess you could call them, but I'm really just using them as trailing stops. So you'll see what I mean once we get into the video. So, or once we get into more trades. So let's say my entry is going to be here. It's a limit buy at this level, the previous resistance, looking for trend continuation. And let's see if we get filled here on the trade. So let's see if it starts kicking in here. Let's see if we get filled. And it looks like we're not going to get filled. That trade is no longer there unless we pull back. Okay, nothing yet. Okay, so I didn't end up getting filled on the trade, so I'm going to cancel my order here. I still am going to keep this zone of support. I do like the fact that we are breaking out again, and I actually like the idea of buying, but I'm going to let this thing play out a little bit more, see if we get a little bit more of a pullback before trying to hop in. And there's the pullback. Let's see if it can break that zone. Yeah, okay. So we did break through that zone. I figured it's probably due for a little bit more of a pullback there, but we did not quite get the pullback. So let's see if we can find a setup. Okay, there's a little bit more pullback. Okay, now we're talking. I actually like the idea of buying into this zone. Notice how price held it very nicely the past time. Past resistance became support here on the retest, and now we are coming into that zone again. So I like the idea of getting long here. Let's go ahead and set up a trade. Well, we're not going to use this tool. We're going to use the Fibonacci retracement. Okay, so here is, you know what? I'm actually going to take the trade right here because I don't know exactly what's going to happen with that next bar. So, okay, so I'm long in the trade right now, and we're going to just hit fast forward and see how this trade would have gone from here. Okay, and let's see. Okay, so price is moving in our favor so far. We'll see if it can pop up to that 1R point right around here. And okay, there it is. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically trail my stop up to break even. So at this point in my head, I'm saying, okay, well, in reality, I would move my actual stop to break even here. So let's see what happens. I'm at a break even point on this trade. And there we go. We would have been tagged out for a break-even trade. So I would come in here and I would say a 0% gain. Okay. And then we just continue the process. We look for more setups, see if there's anything else here, and go from there. Okay. So we'll let it run for a bit. Okay, I'm gonna pause here for a moment and do a little bit more marking up. So I really like the idea of getting long if price breaks and retests this zone. If you guys are familiar with how I trade, this is one of my favorite setups. It's kind of like looking for the ceiling to break and then become the floor. So my idea would be if we can break above this, look for some sort of retest and look to go long on the retest. That to me is a proper setup. Let's see if we get anything like that. Okay, so we're still rejecting that area. Let's see if buyers can get through there. Okay, so we are broken through here. I want to see a little bit more push before I'm interested. Okay, there's the push. So now I'm interested in any sort of pullback here. So in fact, I'm going to put stops underneath structure here, and I've got a pending order basically there. So if we can get some sort of pullback here, let's see if we get anything. And at this point, I'm just going to be patient with it. If it comes to my level, then it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Okay, so I would have been filled right here. Let's see if the trade can hold. Okay, so, and again, these are daily bars, so this would be taking time. These are more swing trades, like, you know, some people don't like that, but I personally like to hold my trades for longer periods of time. Okay, and from here, we're going to be moving my stops to break even. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue that process. Okay, and there we go. Looks like we've got a trade moving in our favor here. Let's see if we can, bam. Okay, now we've moved from, at this point, we moved stops to break even. And now at this point, I'm going to lock in 1R on the trade. So at this point, it's a matter of how much money can we make. And we'll see if the price decides to continue or if it decides to pull back and stop us out. I like how it's holding this pullback really, really sharply. Let's see if that can pop up to the 3R marker there. Okay. And bam, awesome. So now at this point, we've got a trade that went from, here's the entry right around, yeah, we entered right around here. Actually, a really good entry there. And then we moved stops to break even here. Then we moved stops to 2R. And now at this point, we've now moved stops to 2R. At this point, I'm moving stops to 2R to lock in some gains there. Let's see if we can get any more momentum there on the trade, or if we're going to get stopped out. We will see. Still looking bullish here. Okay, we're getting close. So remember, our trailing stop is right here at this point. And let's see. Okay, bam. So we just locked in 2R on the trade. You can see now we can do plus 2% here, and we'll just keep track of that and keep moving on. So now we can go ahead and remove this. Still bullish here. Now for me, my trading is, like I said, it's trend following. So I'm looking to jump into this trend as long as it's a decent entry, as long as I'm looking for that momentum to continue. And I actually like the idea of getting long relatively soon here. If we actually take a look, you can see we've got this trend line holding right now. It's already bounced off of that level a little bit. I don't love the support. Honestly, I would like a little bit more of a pullback, but we might not get it. We'll see how this trend decides to play out, but no entry here for me. Not enough confluence just yet, even though, you know, as I say that, it looks really good to the upside. So we'll see if that can give us any sort of pullback here. Okay, so I'm just going to analyze this a little bit more. So, okay, we've got a top here. We've seen a top of this market, and we're coming back to that top. Again, repeating that concept that we did earlier, right? The broken ceiling becomes the floor. We'll see if that can hold, or if we can get another setup like that going into this next move. Okay, pulling back off of those highs. Again, I'd really want to see price break through those highs in order to try and look for long setups. Again, look how the resistance just holding really, really well there. For the most part, sellers still in control there. But remember, the overall trend is to the upside. So basically looking for any sort of break and retest above that high. Looking very, very bullish overall. Let's see if we can bust through that high. And you can also notice volatility kind of shrunk here. We went from big movements all over to pause markets. Okay, and we're getting close here. We'll see if we can just extend that out a little bit more. And we'll press play here. Okay, we've officially broken through that zone. Like that green candle, the 4 green candles in a row to the upside. That's solid. Now we're looking for any sort of pullback. So let me actually draw in where I'm looking for this setup. Okay, so major support right around here. I'm interested if we can get any sort of pullback to that zone in taking a buy trade, and my stop would be just underneath structure here. If price drops down, then I don't really want to try and stay in this because we are at the top of this range. But if price rallies off of this level, then that would be the ideal situation. Okay, so we're still at this point just waiting on the trade. We'll see if anything happens. We want this support to hold. Otherwise, we want to just drop out of the trade. Look at that, very close to the stop. Okay, and stop down. So now we go over here. We say minus 1%. Okay, and that is what it is. You saw, the setup was not terrible. People in the YouTube comments will backseat drive on me and tell me it was a terrible setup. You shouldn't have taken it. But for me, that met my criteria. It was a decent setup, and let's see what else we can find. We just move on to the next trade. We don't sit there and get upset about a losing trade in real money, or definitely not in demo, right? Okay, still same principle. I like the idea of getting through the break of the high. If that happens, definitely interested. Okay, yeah. So now I want to be in on the long side, but it looks like price has already run up. Let's see if we get any sort of pullback here. Okay. All right, so this is going to look like hindsight, but I want to get, I'm just going to take the trade right here. Okay. So theoretically, I would have jumped into the trade right around the middle of that zone. But we'll just say I got in long here and with a stop underneath structure here. Okay. So if price continues, we'll hold on to it. If it drops down lower, then we're out of there for a loss. Let's see what happens. Okay. And stopped out once more. So minus 1%. And you can see after all this trading, we're just at break even. Now, I'm not taking very many trades here. These are really just daily bars. These are like long-term trends that I'm trying to jump in on. And theoretically, or realistically, I'd be trading this on multiple pairs, this sort of concept on multiple pairs, looking for setups throughout multiple pairs. So I'd be taking more trades. But just for the sake of simplicity, we're just sticking to one pair right now. Okay, and it actually looks like we're starting to see some bearishness in this market. Nothing really here. Okay, well, let me slow down here for a moment. Any sort of retest of this level, I'm interested in jumping in there, keeping it very simple. Dominant uptrend. Really love those green bars there, and I want a piece of the action, but I don't want to chase. So let's see if we can get any sort of pullback there. And I'm just going to clarify in case this thing drops suddenly. Interested in taking a trade right around there with stops about, just kind of below this consolidation zone. If price drops too far beneath it, I don't really want to be in it anymore. And okay, price already kind of breaking through the ceiling again that was formed here. Not going to take a trade just there just yet, but let's see what happens. Okay, so this is kind of an interesting one because at this point, this level is long gone, right? We may retest it at some point or another, but it looks like we've broken through the ceiling once more. So this level here is actually a buy zone to me on the shorter term. So let me see, because again, I want to see what the candles look like if we just keep running. Okay, so I'm not going to take this trade because it does look a bit stretched. We're not seeing any sort of decent pullback. So I'm not going to buy into that. Let's see. And there it goes. You can see it was a bit top heavy and we can see price pulling back. However, I like the idea of jumping in here. This is actually a decent zone of support. So we've got this wick here, but more interesting to me is this consolidation zone that was kind of acting as a bottom. So I'm actually going to say that any sort of pullback to this point is a buy for me. And stops are a little bit tricky here because I have to think about this. So we do have consolidation here. So price could come down to that point to test it. So I'm actually going to extend my stop just a bit here. In fact, I'm going to drop my target just right around here. And we're going to see if one of these two zones can hold as a supportive level. And let's see if it just runs away from me again or if it actually gives me an entry this time. Okay, so my entry is right here and so far not looking too great. But we will see, and bam, stopped out there for a loss, another minus 1% on the trade. No fun. Overall down 1% on this trading so far. Okay, so now let's start fresh because now we're back to the 200-day moving average, which is generally a filter of the trend for me. I'm going to be looking for long continuation here because we are above it right now. Overall, Again, momentum to the upside, but look at this lower high setting up. This is kind of concerning. However, if we break that, I'd be interested in the retest of that. And let's see where we go from here. Okay, so this is an interesting one because now we're kind of in this dominant downtrend on the daily chart, but the 200-day is still bullish. So for me, there's no entry just yet, but if we break this level, looking like for one of these setups, I like that idea. So let's see if we can catch anything there. Okay, so we did break, and let's see what the candles do here. So I'm gonna say buying in here. If we drop down to that point, and look at that, that's one where you just have to sit there and be like, man, I was close. Unfortunately, it did not retest our level perfectly, so we missed that trade. It is what it is. We move on. We look for more setups. Okay, so still bullish, clearly. We did break through that level. We showed kind of fresh demand here. A pullback is of interest to me. Okay, so now things are looking interesting. I like this idea of pulling back to this point, and I'm going to take a trade there if we can get it. Look at that. Sometimes you just can't make this stuff up. This is just the frustration sometimes of trading, right? You have a trade pending, you don't quite get it, and it would have been a great setup, but you were close, but not close enough. It happens. You just have to move on. So ceiling here, if we break the ceiling, I'm interested. If we do not, then I'm not. Okay, so actually, kind of an interesting, I think the risk reward is decent here as well. So let's take this trade. So I'm going to put stops underneath that low there. And let's say we enter right here. Overall uptrend, pulling back to a rough trend line. Trend lines are interesting because trend lines, you can draw them different ways. So I don't find trend lines to be the most powerful resource by any means, just because people draw them different ways and they're a little bit subjective. And a lot of technical analysis is a bit subjective. However, trend lines are just, you can draw it along the wicks, you can draw it line of best fit, right? You can line it across the bodies. There's different ways to draw them, so it's kind of a hard way to pinpoint a level, if you will. So anyways, taking the trade here, looking for the long setup, overall momentum to the upside, and look at that, getting us again with a nice minus 1% there on the trade. So let's see what ends up happening. Okay, so now things are really starting to shift. I actually like the idea of selling that same zone now. I should have taken the trade there now that I'm looking at it, but for the most part, we are back underneath that 200-day moving average, and it looks like I might get a chance here to sell into this area. So I'm actually going to take the sell there, and bam, we are in the trade. Let's see if we get anything to the downside there. Look at how close okay, so maybe we'll have some better performance here with the stop loss, just like we missed some of those entries. Okay, so at this point we are break even. So we barely missed our stop. And okay, now we're looking good. Now we've got ourselves a good trade after all those losses. Small losses, but still it can be mentally frustrating, and it is what it is. So stop here, barely not hit. We moved to break even at this point. At this point, we locked in 1R. And at this point, we locked in 2R. Now it's a question of, can we get a bit more on the trade just to get down here to lock in 3R? And yes, we can. So at this point, we now have 3R locked in on the trade. Okay, sorry about that. So we'll skip to, I clicked the wrong button. So at this point, we locked in what we were at. We just had locked in 3R. Let's see if we can get a little bit more on that trade. Look at that, 4R locked in. And this is the power of letting a winner run. Can we get any more? Oh, ho, look at that. 5R on this trade locked in now. And these are the sort of ones that make the difference in a backtest. So all of that, okay, at this point, we've locked in 6R because we just tagged it right here, right? Moving stops all the way to 6R. Can we get 7? Nope, it looks like we are gonna get 6. And so 6 does us pretty good. and this back test. So what have we learned? We've only taken 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 trades. We've had one break even, 4 losses, and 2 winners. But check this out. This is the cool thing about letting a good trade really do its thing. We caught an incredible move to the downside on GJ here. And so with just our short kind of summary of trades, what do we take? We had, or what did we get? Break even, we had 1 trade. Winners, we had 2 trades. Losers, we had 4 trades. Okay? So our win rate was not great, but our winners were much bigger than our losers because of that last trade. That one trade, how did that make it turn out? So overall, we had 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 2 plus 2, 4% profit. Okay, so obviously nothing crazy. And again, if you're trading a lower time frame, you probably would get a lot more trades than this, and you could backtest that. But for the simplicity's sake, we've just been doing the daily chart. And like I said, when I'm taking trades, I'm looking at, I don't know, maybe 20 to 30 pairs that I watch and looking for setups that make sense. So again, not the most incredible. We had a losing streak, right? In the backtesting, we had a losing streak. And that, even just in the backtesting, was a little bit frustrating. It's like, okay, we take a trade and bam, we're stopped out. And sometimes taking 4 losses in a row can be incredibly frustrating in real time when you're really taking trades. But you can see that we stuck to the plan. And in this case, we overall came out with a nice plus 4% profit. Now, let me also say, we didn't do enough. This is not enough. This is not enough for me to say, oh, this strategy works. Let's go just throw it on the. Now, I happen to know that for me, my strategy overall has, I've thoroughly tested my concepts quite a bit, and I'm happy with the way it overall performs. But you watching this video should not just go say, oh, I'm just going to do exactly that, and that must work, because you should test things for yourself. See the ups and downs of a strategy where you can see this has a low win rate, but the winners are much bigger than the losers in some rare cases where you can catch really big trades like this. So, yeah, so this was just an interesting test. I hope you got something out of it. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you want me to do more backtesting videos, let me know in the comments. And thanks so much for watching. We'll see you back in the next one.